In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to work with the G29 steering wheel and the Connect plugin that it works with. Let's start by opening Connect. And if we go to the plugin, we'll see we have a G29 plugin over here. Now right now it's showing disconnected because I haven't plugged it in. When you use the G29 steering wheel, there's a little switch on the wheel that has PS3 and PS4 compatibility mode. This works best when you have it in PS3 mode, so make sure it's set to that. I'm going to plug in the USB cord into my computer, and I'm going to hit the run button. Now your steering wheel will go through a startup sequence and it should be ready to go. So now you can see one message has already come in, and if I turn the wheel, we get all sorts of messages. And if I press the various buttons, you're going to see all the messages are coming in. We're going to use Connect as our reference here, and let's make Connect a little bit bigger so we can see these messages in full here. Let's clear this. My kit here includes the shift lever, and we're going to use that in here. And you're going to see when I move the shift lever into various gears, it puts it into, so there's first gear, second gear, third gear, neutral in the middle, fourth gear, fifth, sixth, and all the way over for reverse. And reverse comes in as -1. We're going to use the shift lever to double as our automatic drive mode select. So we're going to have it such that if I have it in third gear, that's going to mean park. Right in the middle is going to mean neutral. All the way down into fourth gear, that's going to mean drive. And if I put it into second gear, this will be manual mode where we'll be able to use the paddle shifters. And we'll use the actual reverse gear -1 as reverse gear -1. So let's see how we can set this up in our Pi. So you can see I've got some work that's already been done here. And I've got some logic here that detects what gear I'm in and what drive mode in. So let's start with the drive mode. And this responds to a variable called drive mode. Right over here. By default, it's in 3. That means park. So just to keep things in sync, I'm going to put my shifter into third gear over here. So just to keep everything in sync here. And now let's add a receive for that message coming in. If we go back to Connect, we can see that message is called shifter gear, and it passes along a value with it. So I'm just going to copy shifter gear. Let's go add trigger. We'll add a receive. And because we are working through Connect, we want to choose ProtoPie Studio as the channel. The message is shifter gear, and I'm going to assign this to a variable, and I'm going to assign it to the variable drive mode. I'm not assigning it to gear because this is not, we're not using this to actually shift gears. We're using this to switch the drive mode. This is simulating an automatic car, not a manual transmission car. And let's just rename this. Receive shifter gear. And that's all this is going to do. And this should be enough for us to now switch. We can see we've got this red dot, and as we move into the various gears, this dot should move and indicate which drive mode we're in. That's what this logic here does. So detect drive mode, when the value of drive mode changes, depending on the value of it. So 3 for park, it's going to move the light into that one spot there. -1 for reverse, it'll move the light into this second spot here, etc. So whenever the value of drive mode changes, which is what's happening when this message comes in, this should react and we should see our light move. So let's save this and we'll go back to Connect. And let's pull our Pi into Connect and start it up. Okay, let's clear this so we can see the messages coming in. I'm currently in third gear, which is park. If I move it down 1, that puts me into neutral, and you can see now the red dot is beside neutral. If I go down 1 more, that puts me into drive. And if I go into second gear in the manual shifter, that puts me into manual mode. And we're going to use that later as the only mode that allows us to use the paddle shifters. And we'll be able to change this number and go up and down through the gears. And if I push down and go all the way to the right and down, that puts me into reverse. So there we go. So I have now my Pi responding to some inputs coming from the shifter lever. Now let's make it work with the paddle shifters. If we take a look at our code here, so This is what we've just done here. The drive mode variable moves this red dot. But we also want to be able to move the gear. Now all this does is this updates the number in here. I don't want to be able to go up and down through the gears unless I am in manual mode. So first of all, let's go over to Connect and let's clear this once again and let's take a look. So if I click the paddle shifters, this is the right shifter, this would be gear up. And you can see when I pull it forward, I get the value 1, and then when I let go, I get the value 0. And the same thing for the left shifter. If I pull it in, I get the value 1, and if I let it go, I get the value 0. Now this is useful if you want to do something while something is held down. So if I want to do something while I've held down the right shifter for an amount of time, right? You'll know it's held down because the value coming in is 1, and it's not let go until that value that comes in is 0. We only want to react when the value is 1. So let's add our trigger. Let's do the right shifter first. Wheel shift right, and we'll add a trigger here. Receive from ProtoPie Studio. I want to be able to react only when I pull it forward. So when I pull it forward, the value is 1. You see I turned the wheel a little bit there. Let me do it again. When I pull it forward, the value is 1. I only want to react when it comes in as 1. If it comes in as 0, I want to ignore it. So that value I need to assign to a variable. And I call this a throwaway variable because I'm only using it right here in this receive. So let's just make a throwaway variable. Let's call this paddle right. And in this receive, I'm going to assign the value to paddle right. And then I'm going to make a decision right here. If the value of paddle right equals 1, meaning it's being pulled forward, then I want to do something. And what do I want to do? Well, I want to increase my gears going up and down. So let's say assign gear plus 1. And let's see what that does. I'm going to save. And then when you have a Pi in Connect and you also have it open in Studio, whenever you save, that automatically updates your Pi. Let's bring up Connect here so we can see this at the same time. I'm going to clear this. If I start clicking on here, you can see I've got, there we go, I've got the gears coming through. Now, I don't have any limits in here. First of all, I'm in park, and I shouldn't be able to switch gears unless I am in manual mode. So I need to make one decision to say when drive mode is manual, and also when I'm increasing my gears, let me reset this. When I'm increasing my gears, I don't want to go beyond 7. 7 is the maximum gear. So I need to make a couple more decisions. Let's go back over here and let's change this condition. So number 1, I want to make sure my drive mode is in manual. And let's just take a look at drive mode here. And if we take a look, when the value coming in for drive mode is 2, that means manual. So condition drive mode equals 2, and gear is less than 7. 7 is my maximum gear. I only want to increase the gear that I'm in when the paddle right value coming in is 1, not 0, and when drive mode equals 2 or manual, and if my gear is less than 7. So let's see if that works. I'm going to save this. We'll go back to our Pi here, and let's just clear everything here and Connect again so we can see everything coming through. Now, if I start clicking on the shifter, you're going to see nothing is happening in my Pi. Let's now put this into manual mode, and I should be able to increase my gear all the way up to 7. And I can't go any further than 7. Now let's hook up the left shifter in the same way. I'm just going to copy this. And if we go back to Connect, we'll see wheel shift left is the name of our message. So receive wheel shift left. And I'm going to duplicate this variable and call this paddle left. And let's assign our value to paddle left, not paddle right. And my condition here now will be if paddle left equals 1 and the drive mode equals 2. Once again, I only want this to happen when I'm in manual. And because this will be decreasing the gear, I'm going to change my condition here to be if it's greater than 1. And instead of gear +1, this will be gear -1. So now this should be everything I need to be able to shift up and down through the gears. Save. Let's go back to Connect. We'll clear all this stuff and we'll bring it back up in here. And now nothing should happen. Good. Let's put it manual mode. And you're going to see I can shift up and down through the gears, and I can only go up as high as 7, and I can only go down as far as 1. And if I go back into drive, my code puts me into gear 1, and this is fully automatic mode, so my shifters no longer have any effect. Okay, let's just rename some things here. So we'll call this paddle right. We'll call this paddle left. Okay, and we're going to group these, and we'll say G29 shifter and paddles. Okay, that's done. Let's work on the turn signals. We're going to have the turn signals work with the R3 and L3 buttons, and the hazards will work with the triangle button. And just like the paddle shifters, when the button is down, we get the value 1, and if I let go, we get the value 0. So similarly, we only want to react when the value is 1. I want this to work so that way when I click the R3 button on the steering wheel, it's going to make the right turn signal blink. Now there's already messaging in here, so if I send the message to the current scene, this message blink right, this will cause it to blink. Everything's already set up for this to work. You can go in through here and take a look at the logic in here, but just suffice to say that everything is set up in here to start the blinking, stop the blinking, and then blinking the hazards. I'm going to add a receive here from ProtoPie Studio, and this will be, here we go, wheel button R3. And once again, you're going to see if I click it, I'm getting 1 when it's down and 0 when I release. I only want to react when the value is 1. So I need to assign this to a variable. Let's make one. Again, this is another throwaway variable, R3. And in my receive, I'm going to assign to variable R3. So if my condition R3 equals 1, then I'm going to send a message, and this is now to the scene because I want to trigger this here. And this is receive from current scene. I want to send the message blink right to the current scene. Send to current scene, blink right. Okay, let's see if this works. We'll go back here. Let's clear our messages and connect so we can see them come in. And I'm going to press R3 on the steering wheel. And there we go. Now it's blinking. I'd also like this to behave, though, that if I press R3 again, it's going to stop the blinking. So I need to make another decision. Let's go back to our Pi here. Now I have variables. Let me turn on the debug for these. And when they're blinking, these change from 0 to 1. Let me save this, and we'll go back to over here. Now, if I press R3, you're going to see the value of right blinking goes to 1. So I have something I can make a decision on. So if right blinking equals 0, then I want to start blinking. And if right blinking equals 1, I want to stop blinking. Let's now change our condition over here. This condition, if right blinking equals 0. Essentially, right is not blinking, then I want to send blink right. And if we go back to turn signals, you see there's a stop right message as well that we can use. Let's duplicate this condition. So R3 value is 1, right blinking equals 1. So if it is blinking, we're not going to send the message blink right, we're going to send the message stop right. Okay, save this. We'll go back to our Pi running in Connect here. Here, we'll clear this. Okay, let's try this now. I click R3 once. It starts blinking, and if I click it again, it stops blinking. on, off. Let's do the same thing for the left button. So I need another throwaway variable. Let's duplicate this and we'll call this L3. And we'll duplicate this entire receive here. So duplicate this, and instead of going to R3, we're going to go to L3, and the message I want is wheel button L3. Condition, L3 equals 1, and left blinking, I want to send blink left. And if L3 equals 1 and left blinking equals 1, then I'm going to say stop left. Okay, save. Go back here, let's clear our messages again. And now when I hit R3 and I press it again, it stops the signal from blinking. And if I do L3, it stops the signal from blinking. Now there's already logic built in here. So if I click R3 and then I click L3, it's automatically stopping the blinking of the right signal. And similarly, if I can go back and forth. So the second press of R3 or L3 will only stop the blinking if it's currently blinking. Now I want to do the same thing for my hazards. I want to be able to press the triangle button. Let's clear this. I want to be able to press the triangle button. And when I do, I want to blink the hazards. And I have a message for that already, blink hazards. So this is very redundant. We're going to do the same thing all over again here. Triangle. I'm going to add a trigger, and then the message coming in is wheel button triangle. Receive from ProtoPie Studio, wheel button triangle. And I'm going to do the same thing. We have a hazards blinking variable over here that is 0. So if hazards are not blinking, I want to blink them. And if they are blinking, I want to stop. So receive wheel button in here. We're going to make a decision. Condition. If triangle equals 1, it's pressed down, not released. And hazards blinking equals 0. Then I'm going to send the message to the current scene, blink hazards, that one right there. And let's duplicate this. And when my value of hazards blinking is 1, that means the hazards are blinking, then I want to send stop hazards. That's that one right there. Let's see how this works. Save. Clear the messages. All right, if I press the triangle, okay, not working. Why not? We did not assign our value to triangle. So we need to do this. There we go. Make sure we assign the value to our variable. Save. Let's go back over here. Let's clear this like we did before, and we'll bring this up again. All right, if I click the hazards once, there we go, my hazards are blinking. Click them again, they stop. And like the left and right turn signals, there's already logic built in. So if I press R3 to start the right blinking, and then I press the hazards, it automatically stops the right blinking. And at this point, R3 and L3 will stop the hazards, and we don't want that. I want the hazards blinking to take precedence. I don't want to be able to turn on my right signal while my hazards are blinking. So let's add in a few more conditions into our mix here. So in my left blinking, and we're going to add in conditions to these 4. So if hazards blinking equals 0, this is the only condition when I will allow the right blinker to be active. Right? And then same thing down here, hazards blinking equals 0. And I'll do the same under these ones. So plus hazards blinking equals 0. And over here, same thing. So now my R3 and L3 are only available when my hazards aren't blinking. Let's save, clear our messages, and let's try this now. So R3, L3, and I should be able to go back and forth. Okay, now let's start the hazards. And R3 and L3 should not have any effect at this point. I need to stop the hazards here before, there we go. And now my hazards should also take precedence while these are blinking. So when I press the triangle, hazards should start blinking, and R3 and L3 have no effect at this point. I should be able to turn off the hazards, and once again, I can turn on my signals. Okay, so my turn signals are working by the buttons. I'd also like this to be cancelable. So when I have my left or my right blinker on, if I turn the wheel to the right, I want it to be able to cancel the right blinker. And similarly, if I have my left blinker on and I turn the wheel to the left, I want it to cancel my left blinker. So if we take a look inside Connect, let's clear this. If I turn the wheel, you're going to see we have all sorts of granular numbers that are coming through here. When the wheel is in its neutral position, the value is roughly 50. If I turn this hand over hand to full right lock, it's 100. And if I turn this hand over hand to full left lock, it's 0. So the steering value can be anywhere between 0 and 100 to 2 decimal places. So let's make it that if my right blinker is on and I turn the wheel to, let's say, 10 more. So if I turn my wheel to 60, then I make a notification to my Pi to say, okay, we're going to cancel that signal, but I don't want to cancel it as my wheel is turned. I want to cancel it when it returns. So when I return, so if I go all the way over to 60, and then when I return back to say around 55, I want it to cancel there. I want this to work like a real car. So let's make I'm going to make a variable here called cancel signal. And this will be a flag in the same way that the hazards blinking are. I only want to cancel the signal when this is 1. And we're going to look for that when we turn the wheel back. I'm going to add a trigger for the wheel turning. So let's go back to Connect and we'll get our message, wheel turn. Add trigger, receive from ProtoPie Studio, wheel turn. And we want to assign this to a variable because I need to keep track of the steering angle. So let's make one called steering angle. And a number is fine because we are receiving a number. When we receive wheel turn, we're going to assign that to steering angle. I need to make a decision now. If my steering angle goes above 60 and my right blinker is flashing, so condition, steering angle greater than 60, and my right blinker is flashing, so right blinking equals 1, I'm going to add an assign here. And I'm going to change the value of cancel signal equals 1 because I don't want to do it just yet. I don't want to do it until I turn the wheel back. And let's do the same thing for the left turn. So if I go down below 40, let's add another condition in here. So condition, if steering angle is less than 40 and the left blinker is on, then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to assign this cancel signal. We're going to use this for both the left or the right signal because we can't have them both blinking at the same time. That would be hazards on, and we don't want to do anything when that is happening. So it's only when either the right or the left is blinking when we turn the wheel. Now we need another condition for when we turn the wheel back. So when the wheel, and what did we say, 5 to the left and 5 to the right? So if it's greater than 45 and less than 55. So condition, steering angle greater than 45 and steering angle is less than 55. So coming back to neutral, when the steering wheel enters the neutral position and I've got my cancel signal flag on, so and cancel signal equals 1. Then let's cancel our signals, and we'll send both. because we don't know which one is blinking at this point, but we know we don't want anything blinking, so we're going to send stop right and stop left. So send to current scene, stop right, and add another send to current scene, stop left. And I need to turn my cancel steering flag off, so I'm going to set that back to 0. So assign cancel signal back to 0. Okay, let's save this. Let's go back to Connect here, clear everything, and let's turn on the debug for this cancel signal. Let's put you here. Okay, so messages are cleared. We'll bring up our thing here. Okay, and now when I turn, you're going to see when I turn past 60 and I turn back, my cancel signal doesn't change because it's not blinking. But if I turn on the blinker, and if I go past 60, so I'm going to go slow. There we go, past 60, cancel signal is now 1. When I turn back and I get below 55, there we go, my signal is canceled. And let's see if it works the same way going left. So if I turn on my left signal, turn all the way to the left, and then I turn back, there we go, my signal is canceled. And with my hazards on, they should not be canceled as I turn left and right. All right, now let's hook up the gas pedal. When I press the gas pedal, I want to move the needle around the tachometer like this. Now I have an idling position. We're assuming that the engine is running and it's idling, and when I press the gas pedal, the needle should move all the way up to a maximum of 8,000 RPM here. And let's turn off all of these debugs now because these are all working as we expect. I don't need these on anymore. Let's rename these. This is receive L3. This is receive triangle. And this is steering. And let's group these for G29 turn signals. And let's collapse that. That's working now. We don't need to touch that again. Now we're going to work with the gas pedal. Let's clear this. And if I press the gas pedal, you're going to see once again I get a value between 0 and 1. So this is not pressed at all. That's pressed about halfway, and then all the way down it's between 0 and 1 and two decimal places. We have 100 spots of granularity here. I want to map the gas pedal. So when I press the gas pedal, then the needle moves according to how far down I've pressed the gas pedal. Let's take a look at our throttle stuff here. We have a chain, the value of throttle, and rotate the needle. So if it's between 0 and 1, the needle will rotate between negative 113 degrees and 140. So all we need to do is we need to assign a value to the throttle variable. So that's easy to do. Let's go back to Connect and let's get our pedals gas message. Copy that, we'll make it receive. Receive from ProtoPie Studio, pedals gas, assign the variable, and we will assign this to throttle. So we'll go back to Connect here. Let's clear this. Go back to Chrome, and this should work now if I press the gas pedal, and you're going to see. So if I press it, if I let it go all the way, it goes back to the idle position, and if I press it all the way down, then it goes all the way up to 8,000 RPM. But I don't like how this works. This is not realistic. When you press the gas pedal on a real car, the engine has inertia, it has momentum. So if I press to here, you get that kind of revving. So the needle kind of is slow to catch up to your position, and then when you let go, it's slow to go all the way back down. So we need to introduce some kind of a delay in here. Currently, we have the needle chained directly to the value of throttle, but instead, I don't want to have that work directly as is. So let's just turn this off for a second. And I have this invisible bar over here called throttle bar, and right now it has no fill. Let's turn on its fill, and it's this pink thing, and it's 400 pixels tall. So in my receive, I'm going to use the value of throttle to scale this, but we're going to scale it over time. So let's add here, let's add a scale response, and I want to scale the layer throttle bar, and I'm going to give it a height. I'm going to give it a height of a multiplier of throttle. So throttle times 400. This should give us, because throttle is a value between 0 and 1, this should give us a percentage. So when throttle is 0, my bar should be scaled to 0. And when throttle is 1, my bar should scale to 400. And if my throttle is 0.5, then it'll be at 200. So this is what I want here. And I'm going to change the scale of throttle bar, or its initial size. I'm going to change it to 0 initially. So let's save this. Let's go back to Connect. And we'll go back to here. And let's see what happens now when I press the gas pedal. Okay. We are getting a little bit of a delay. And you're going to see if I press the gas pedal, there's like a split second before it goes all the way up. Let's play around with the animation timing here. We have this happening over 0.2 seconds. Let's slow this down. Let's slow this down to 1 second. And let's change the easing here. Let's just change it to ease out, so that way it starts off fast but slows down after. Let's see what that looks like. Clear this. And now if I press the gas pedal. Okay. So as I let go, you're going to see there's a little bit of a delay. And if I go up to about halfway, and if I go up a bit more, and you're going to see it just kind of moves up and down a little bit. This is a lot more realistic. And if I let go, gas pedal goes all the way back to 0, but the bar lags behind. Let's now chain the rotation of the needle to the height of this bar, instead of chaining it directly to the value of throttle. So let's go back in here and we'll turn our chain back on. But I don't want to chain the value of throttle. I want to chain the value of, where's my throttle bar, and its height. And let's just now change these so it's between 0 and 400. And the same thing with the shadow under here. Okay, and we'll rename this. Rename this throttle bar. We'll save and let's see what this looks like now. If I press the gas down, there we go. It slows down as it gets up to the height, and if I let go, the needle lags behind, and I can go to like some area in the middle, and it's hard to hold it there. This is like a real engine. It's hard to hold it at an exact value here. And it kind of fluctuates a little bit. This is like a real car. And if I let go down a little bit, and if I let go completely, then it goes back to its idle level. And if I press the gas pedal all the way down, if I pin it, it takes a second to get all the way up to 8,000 RPM. All right, let's go back here and let's rename this. And we'll call this gas pedal. Let's actually group all of these together. So I'm going to ungroup this and group all of these together into one. And we're going to call this tachometer. And the reason why I'm making this group is when you're working with Connect, you don't have to work with a single screen. And in fact, one of the real benefits to using ProtoPie and Connect with the G29 wheel is you can make a realistic multi-screen experience like you would inside a real car. If we go back to the Pi we made and connected to our Arduino. So give me 1 second. Let me open that up here. And let's also open that in Connect. If I start the plugin for my Arduino is currently plugged in, by the way, so I'm on 152. Let me run this. And let's put these into a group. So I'm going to make a group. Put these into our multi-view group here. And let's start this in multi-view. There we go. I've got two things side by side here. Let's resize some things, make this a little bit more realistic. So let's say make my tachometer a little bit bigger here. And we'll make this guy, we'll make him a little bit bigger as well. Let's assume this is two screens. So I've got my cluster display in front of me that has my tachometer, and I've got my climate control on another screen a little bit to the right. Maybe it's in the center console here. Now all of this should still work as is. I can click it. I have my Arduino hooked up and I can control it with the Arduino, and you're going to see those messages coming through here. So let's just put this up over here, and you're going to see the messages are coming through. This still works as is. So my Arduino represents physical buttons that might be in my center console. I have a touch screen where I can modify this as is. I want to have a third way to connect this, and I want to be able to use another button on the steering wheel. On the wheel, we have a few extra buttons that we can play with here. So let's clear this. On the G29, there is a rotary wheel. It's this orange one, and if I turn that, you're going to see I get wheel spinner, and it gives me the direction. This behaves just like my encoder, right? So as I go to the right, I get wheel spinner is 1. That means I'm turning clockwise. And if I go to the left, I get wheel spinner -1. That means counterclockwise. Well, I can use this to send the message to increase the temperature up and down. And then there is a button in the middle of that spinner, and if I click that, you see wheel button spinner. Let's use that to turn our climate control on and off. And then we have, on the left side of the steering wheel, we have a plus up and a plus down. Let's use this to increase our fan speed up and down. So this will give us full control over our climate control now from our steering wheel. Let's start with the on-off button. So that is the button spinner. And again, only when the value is 1 do I want to do anything. Let's copy this, wheel button spinner. So let's add a trigger. We're going to handle everything here through the G29. Now we could have done it on the other side too in the climate control Pi. It's up to you where you want to handle this, but everything's coming from the G29 wheel. I'm going to handle it here. I'm going to add a trigger, receive from ProtoPie Studio, and this will be wheel button spinner. And I need to assign this to a throwaway variable again. So we'll call this spinner button. Receive spinner button, and this will now go to, where's our variable? Spinner button. And we're going to make a decision when its value is 1. So spinner button, when it equals 1, I'm going to send that same on-off message. So you'll see in my Arduino, if we go into Connect here, let's clear this. And we'll bring up the thing in here. You're going to see when I click the button, the message coming through is on-off. Right? This message gets shared with all of my Pis currently running through Connect. So I can send and receive through here, and my climate control should respond to this message regardless of where it comes from, meaning that I can send the on-off message from the other Pi. So let's turn it off here, and we'll go back to our Pi here, and let's send. Send the message to ProtoPie Studio, and let's send the message on, off. No value to send along with this. Let's save this and go into ProtoPie Connect. Let's make this thin. We'll clear this and we'll bring up our multi-view over here, and let's make this just a little bit smaller. So let's change this so we can see both the messages and the Pis on one screen here. Okay, so if I click through my Arduino, I can turn my climate control on and off. And if I click that message on my steering wheel, or if I click the button on my steering wheel, there we go. It's now turning my climate control on and off. So now I can control my climate control 3 different ways. I can turn it on from the steering wheel. I can tap my touch screen and turn it off here. And I can turn it on and off in my center console. Doesn't matter where that message comes from, this Pi will respond to it. Let's add in the click wheel now. Let's clear this. We'll just take a look at our click wheel messages. We're looking for wheel spinner. If it equals 1, that's clockwise, which will give us the temp up message. And if it's -1, that's counterclockwise, and that should send the temp down message. Add trigger, receive from ProtoPie Studio, and let's click wheel val. You call it whatever you like. Again, it's a throwaway variable. I'm only using it here to store this for a moment. Click wheel val, condition. If click wheel val equals 1, then I'm going to send the message to ProtoPie Studio, temp up. And let's copy this If it's -1, you recall -1 means counterclockwise. I'm going to send the message temp down. Let's see how this works. Let's clear this. We'll bring up our stuff here. So now I can turn on my climate control, and I'm doing this all through the steering wheel now. I should be able to. Okay, not working. I have the wrong message here. It's not wheel button spinner, it's wheel spinner. So this is for the button in the middle. This is for the click wheel outside. There we go. Let's save that. Okay, let's take a look at our Connect messages here. I'm going to clear these and let's turn on. There we go. I can turn on my climate control, and there I am now doing this all through the steering wheel. And you're going to see, you see a message come in, 3 messages in total for every click. The wheel spinner goes from 1 to 0, so that's 1 that says it goes clockwise, 0 to go back to neutral position, and then the message temp up is sent through from the G29 Pi, which is received again by our climate control Pi. And I should be able to do the same thing now with the fan control. I've got these, the button plus and the button minus. Okay, let's add a trigger for that. So button plus, wheel button plus. Receive from ProtoPie Studio, wheel button plus. We'll make our throwaway value here for this scene. Call this plus button. Let's send this to plus button. And if it equals 1, then I'm going to send the message fan up, send to ProtoPie Studio, fan underscore up. And let's duplicate this for button, I believe it's button minus. Yeah, button minus. There we go. And we'll duplicate this and we'll call this minus button. So receive, we'll send this to the minus button, and if the minus button equals 1, then we're going to send fan down. All right, we should now have a true multi-screen experience, full control of our climate control either from our Arduino, from our steering wheel, or through our touchscreen. Okay, let's turn it on. I'm going to turn it on by the buttons in my center console, which is what my Arduino represents. Press 1, there we go. I'm going to adjust the temperature from the steering wheel, which I can do. I'm going to adjust the fan speed from the touch screen itself, maybe right about there. And I don't like the temperature, it's a bit too warm. I'm going to turn it down from my steering wheel. And I'm also going to turn down the fan speed from the steering wheel as well. I don't need it on this much. And now I'm happy with my climate control. I'm going to turn it off from the steering wheel. The main thing to get across here, within ProtoPie Connect, you can use multiple plugins at the same time. So we use the Arduino plugin because I had the code uploaded to it. That was in the Arduino Part 2. If you had to use the block dots, you'd be using the block dots plugin instead of the Arduino one, but you can do them both. You can combine all 4 of these plugins. In fact, it's possible to have 2 Arduinos control your Pis, one through code and a second one through block dots. That'll work. So you can use any and all of these plugins at the same time when you're in Connect. What's also important to note here is right now I've got my G29 Pi and my climate control Pi all running in a multi-view here, but I could have these on separate screens as well. So for example, I could have this climate control running on an iPad. And this one would be, if we could have this running on its own like this, like we did before, and then I can have this one running on an iPad. So I would scan an iPad and now have an actual multi-screen experience. I could actually have multiple screens in here. There you go, a full multi-screen dashboard experience using G29, using an Arduino, and ProtoPie Connect.